I made a video a while back showing you how to sample like one of my favorites, Jay Dilla. So today I'm going to show you 3 creative and easy sampling techniques you can use in your next beat. Let's get into it. Starting off with number 1 and one of my personal favorites, reversing. This can sound great if done right, but this is one of those techniques which is simple in theory but a bit hard to execute. Reason being because it depends heavily on the sample being used. Alright, in Ableton, very simply you go to the clip of your choice and there's a button here called reverse. You click on that and voila, you've reversed a sample. However, if you use the wrong sample, it could sound a bit disorienting and can lose a lot of the groove of the original. For example, I don't know about you, but that just doesn't sound good enough for me to listen for an entire song. So what I like to do is sporadically drop in the reverse sample clip throughout the song. So here I have the reverse sample clips highlighted in orange, just so we know where they are. And let's take a listen. So as you can hear, I drop in the reverse sample clip every once in a while just to keep the beat interesting or as a lead up to the next sample chop. So now let's listen with the rest of the instruments so we can get a better context of how the reverse sample adds to the groove. Alright, for number 2, we have multi-pitch sample chopping. So basically, you take a sample, you chop it up, and now with the different pieces you've chopped up, you set them all to different pitches. And now I'm going to show you one of my secrets to make this easy, and I guarantee it works almost every time. There's a concept in music called encircling a note, which means you approach your target note first from above and then below before reaching it to give a sense of anticipation and movement. And that's what I did with the sample right here. The entire loop is 2 bars long. So for the main part of the loop, I have this sample clip pitched down 2 semitones, and now I have 2 more sample clips, one pitched down 3 semitones and one pitched down 1 semitone before you get back to the beginning of the loop. So let's hear how that sounds. Now let's hear it with the drums. So let's say I didn't change the pitches of the other sample clips. So let's just have everything be 2 semitones pitched down. So I move this one up and I move this one down. So let's just see how that sounds. Like, I could play it like that, but I just feel having that encircling just adds so much more movement and just makes the beat much more interesting to listen to. Next and lastly is layering different samples together. This technique could take a good amount of trial and error and experimentation to get right, not to mention a healthy knowledge of recorded music, but once you listen to enough music and quickly reference different songs and then mash them together. But if you want to help speeding up that process and also want to be able to clear those samples hassle-free, the best place to go to is Tracklib. Tracklib is my absolute favorite place to find samples. It has incredible sounding samples with a wide variety of genres from soul to rock to electronic music. And for the purposes of this video, Tracklib allows you to filter out samples by key, BPM, instruments. So finding 2 samples that blend well together is quick and easy. And these aren't your typical generic tracks that you hear in other sound libraries. These are some classic legit gems. They even got Isaac Hayes on here. Now, let's say you only like the drums and let's say the horns of a song, but not the rest. So in that case, Tracklib allows you to download only those instruments tracks, which is a service that no other sample library that I know provides. All the samples come predetermined with set prices to clear the license and predetermined royalty splits. But the premium and max plans allow you to clear the sample and get the license for absolutely free. It comes with the plan. And if you use my link in the description, you get a 50% discount out from the premium and max plans. Honest to God, I use TrackLib almost exclusively for all of my productions, so what are you waiting for? Use the link in the description, gain access to TrackLib, and start sampling like the pros. Let's get back to the video. So most of the time for sample layering to work, you may need to adjust the timing and the pitch of the second sample to work with the first one. And it can oftentimes feel like you're just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. But the secret is when choosing your second sample, you are going to want to focus on two things: instrumentation and key. For instruments, think carefully what instruments will add value to your track, and does the second sample have that? You can also think about genre in this case. If you're trying to make something chill and jazzy, choose samples with pianos, sax, etc. If you're going for something more epic, think heavy drums, orchestra sounds, electric guitar. For key, think about if the first sample is in a major or minor key, which forces you to find options that have a similar type of key. Because let's say if the first sample is in a major key and the second one is in a minor key, and you want to change the pitch to match, you can only go up and down in pitch to the entire track. You won't have access to the individual notes, so there will be a very significant clash that probably won't blend well, regardless if you pitch it up or down. Let's check out an example. Alright, so for this beat, I felt like some horns will definitely complement this track. So I found this sample and I adjusted the speed and I pitched it down 3 semitones so it could match the first sample I had in the project. And I know it doesn't say that I pitched it down, but I had to consolidate it. And once you do, it reverts back to 0 as if it was a brand new clip. So you just gotta have to trust me. I also did a reversal on the first sample, so that's another example of that. Alright, let's take a listen. Also, another thing I want to mention is try not to have 2 or more samples that are very busy. As in, like, they have a lot of stuff going on, they have multiple instruments. This can make it very hard for you to match up the sounds and isolate specific instruments with EQ. And it could just sound very messy and muddy, especially if you don't have the individual stems. This ties back into what I said about instrumentation. To make it easier for you, try to separate the samples by harmony, melody, and counter melody. If your first sample is laying down the chords and most of the harmonic information, then try to look for a second sample that can be used for the melody. Like I have here, I have the first sample taking care of the harmony while the horn is laying down the melody. And the trumpet is pretty loud in the mix of the sample, so it was easy for me to use EQ and isolate it so the rest of the instruments in the sample don't clash with the first sample's harmony. Now as a bonus, let's take a look at a beat that incorporates all of these techniques. Alright, so for this track, I layered the first sample with 2 reversed versions of it. One is pitched 7 semitones down and another one is pitched 12 semitones up, which is the same thing as an octave. Let's take a listen. For the hook, I took this second sample and pitched it 2 semitones down to match the key of the rest of the samples. And I used EQ with some pretty harsh filters so I can only get the string sounds. Now let's hear that with everything else. And as you can see, I layered every layered sample pretty wide. Because the samples have such lush sounds, I wanted to like envelop you as you're listening to it. So I wanted a really full wide sound. And now I just add some drums, a Yoshi sample because he's a good boy, and an ARP for some variation. That's all it is. Let's take a listen. that's about it. There's so much fun experimentation you could do with these techniques, and like I showed you, you could combine them and come up with some really cool stuff. The most important thing to remember when it comes to sampling is to just have fun with it, and remember that sampling can be and is one of the most creative things that you can do as a producer. The possibilities are endless, and these were just a few options. If you want to learn more about sampling, I made a couple videos on this very topic that you can check out right here on screen. Leave a like if you found value in this, subscribe for more music production content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. This has been Microwave. Peace.